As we go through this course, we're going to be looking at many configuration tools within Windows, and I want to sort of categorize them a little bit or show you some of the interfaces and types of interfaces that are used for those configuration tools. There's no one type that you'll see regularly. So, for example, I got my notes in front of me here. One is the control panel, and we've already seen the control panel earlier. I'll type it again down here. Go to Control Panel. What you're looking at here in the Control Panel are something called applets. Now you have applets, but no cotlets, unfortunately, if you're into those little gummy candies. The applets are typically CPL files, although they can be DLL files or exe executable files, but typically the CPL files. As a matter of fact, I'm going to go to a little application I have called Search Everything, where I can just look at all the files on my system, and I'm going to type star, means any characters, dot CPL, and you'll see all these CPL files, which are the applets that are built into the control panel. Another area is, of course, the Settings app, and we saw this in a previous video. If I go down here to Start and go up to the gear icon and click Settings, we'll open the Settings app. This is one of those UWP apps, and this is another way now where we're seeing a lot of configuration that's going on here in Windows is now through the Settings app. Another one that's very common in Server and still pretty common in Windows 10 is the MMC, or Microsoft Management Console. If I type MMC down here, I can open up a blank copy of the Microsoft Management Console. And here you can see, well, I can't configure anything, but if I click File here and Add Remove Snap-in, now I can see a bunch of the configuration things that open up in the console. So, for example, let's open up Services and the Performance, or the Performance Monitor. I'll add those two. And now you see I have these consoles that I can drop down and open up and look at and do configuration in them. So a lot of things, for example, Performance Monitor, PERF, there's Performance Monitor. If I click that, it says App here. If I click that Performance Monitor, it actually opens up a Management Console. And this is the same console, even though it looks slightly different here. That's just because they've, in this particular instance of it, they've turned off some of these customizations. So, for example, the action pane, which is in the MMC, the blank MMC, I can turn that back on. So you can tell if something is a Microsoft Management Console snap-in. If you click View and Customize, you'll see that it's an MMC, and you can turn on and off various portions of it as you wish. Typically these are in MSC files. Again, I'm going to go to my Search Everything, and I'm going to type star.msc, and you can see all of these, which are the Microsoft Management Console snap-ins. So this is a Microsoft Snap-in Console MSC. Let's take a look at one of them. Let's just open up the Disk Manager MMC, and here is the Disk Manager. So it doesn't look immediately like an MMC, but again, if I click View and Customize, I can turn on the Actions pane. Now it's beginning to look more like a standard MMC console. So a lot of our configuration takes place in these MMCs. By the way, in Windows Server, if you've had any Windows Server classes, almost everything is done in those MMC snap-ins. Another common thing that that Windows will use to make configuration changes are just standalone configuration programs. Let me see here. Let's go to Defrag. I believe that's a standalone application that opens up in its own window. Yeah, you see this is not an MMC console. It's just its own standalone application. And so a lot of configuration is done in these standalone executables. The Registry Editor. it turns out that a lot of the configuration that you do in any of the others, MMCs, executable files, and so on, are actually making changes here in the registry. So the registry has these 5 hives in it. They call them hives, like a beehive, and a lot of these changes are being made directly in this registry, but you can edit it manually. Be careful what you do. You can mess up your system and have to reinstall, and that can cause a lot of problems. So you don't mess around with the registry editor a lot, although there are a lot of times that you can only do things there that you can't do anywhere else very easily. A lot of tools for configuring the system are also done in both the command line and Powershell. Powershell is the newest command line system. I'm always going to open it as an administrator. And as you can see, it's simply a command line where I can run commands and do a lot of system configuration, installing things, all sorts of things can be done through PowerShell. Not everything can be, but pretty close. You can do more in PowerShell than you can in any other configuration method. The other one is the command line, CMD, command prompt. I'm also going to run that as an administrator. And you can see that these are using, if you look carefully, you notice that these look very similar. I get these, oops, I want to get these windows down here where I can put them side by side. I've got the font turned up in this thing, so let's turn that font back down to something normal. There we go. Now you can see that these are essentially the same engine that's running them. They're just, in this case, this little blank window is running PowerShell. In this case, it's running the command prompt, but these are really the same program that's running both of them. So the command line can make a lot of changes, and by the way, a lot of executables, those exe files, are actually command line commands. So you can't always tell where something belongs in this system by looking at just the file type, be it CPL, MSC, EXE, DLL, and so on. They might run as a command, they might run as a snap-in in the MMC, and they might run as a control panel applet. So that's just, you just have to get used to the fact that these things interact, and sometimes when you open something in one, it opens it in another. We're going to talk about the control panel more later on as we go into the next phase of a course. So that's it for our introductory stuff, our orientation to Windows 10.